We had sailed across the Great Australian Bight to Ceduna, and then along the South Australian coast to Coffin Bay. But it was well into winter by then. So we had decided to pause Southern Ocean sailing until the warmer months. And I flew to sunny Thursday Island to help friends sail to Indonesia. Then, after a 3-month land cruise up north to warm weather, we returned to Coffin Bay to refurbish Free Ascent. Back at the yacht club for meals. And Free Ascent moved to the jetty to easily load gear and prepare for slipping. With our car and camping setup, we moved to the campground. While working on the boat, the cockpit top edge needed replacing. All finished and ready to launch. Daughter Julia flew in from Europe to visit. And of course, she had us exploring the local national park. Back at the Coffin Bay pub, some locals wandered by. We had a meal at the 1802 Oyster Bar Cafe, so named as the year that Flinders mapped the bay, and named it after his friend, Sir Isaac Coffin. We visited the Lincoln Conservation Park, a privately owned park. Of course, we had to visit the Oyster Tour restaurant. Another hot day, so we followed the local kids and did some jetty jumping ourselves. We had rented a storage shed to store the trailer and camping gear, and later the car as well. Then a minor health problem meant a month's delay, and several 700k road trips each way to Adelaide and back. Finally, we were ready to depart Coffin Bay on the 10th of February 2020. Under sail again, we took an interesting 16-day cruise to Adelaide. A short sail to White Lady to get the tide at the bar next morning. An art painting of the White Lady at the north end of the beach. Across the bar in the morning with the high tide. A 65k sail from the bar crossing to Avoid Bay, but only 12k as the crow flies from Coffin to an anchorage in Avoid Bay, well protected from the prevailing ocean swells. So named by Matthew Flinders because of Avoid Point with its reefs. An 80k day hop to Williams Island. A safe anchorage, even in northerlies. Only a small fetch to the mainland. Next day we waited for the right tide flow to travel through Thorny Passage to Memory Cove, so named by Flinders in memory of 8 crewmen. Lost when the cutter he had sent looking for water was capsized. The appropriately named Cape Catastrophe. All the islands around named in honour of the lost crewman. The largest thistle after Flinders' great friend. And at that time, the master of their ship, the Investigator. Into Memory Cove for a look and a lunch break, before continuing on to Port Lincoln. Port Lincoln, arriving in the evening. Grain storage silos were impressive at night. Less so next day. Port Lincoln exports 80% of the region's grain, averaging 1.3 million tonnes annually. And famous for seafood, especially tuna, which started it off. We all know the brand Safcol, the South Australian Fishing Cooperative Limited. And the racehorse, Mackay Bediva. And of course, Australia's preeminent cartographer, Matthew Flinders. And his faithful cat Trim. The pleasant CBD seafront. After an active stay replenishing supplies, we went to the marina to fill our water tanks. We overnighted at the collector jetty, free, and filled the tanks. From Port Lincoln to an anchorage at the northern end of Thistle Island. The rocky foreshore had a colony of wallabies. Thistle Island to Wedge Island. We managed to find a spot in the rocks to landash, to urinate, etc. A ladder to a favourite fishing spot? But mostly we were confined to the boat. Next morning, Wedge Island across to West Cape Bay. West Cape is the southwest end of the Yorke Peninsula, between Port Lincoln and Adelaide. The bay, a nice anchorage in the summer condition. Across to Emu Bay on Kangaroo Island. We passed by Althorpe Island, an isolated lightkeeper-worked island, years ago. Another nice beach for Dash to explore. Emu Bay settlement in the distance. Emu Bay to Rapid Bay, back on the mainland. Leaving Emu Bay. Into Rapid Bay, south of Adelaide. The final leg up to Adelaide. With a brisk and favourable wind, for a change. Into the Port Adelaide River. And into Marina Adelaide. We flew back to Coffin Bay to retrieve our car and camping trailer. And spent the night camping in the shed, before driving back to Adelaide. From Adelaide, we drove and car ferried to Dover, on Port Esperance in Tasmania, to take possession of a house we had bought in the most southern town in Australia. Little did we know that because of COVID, it would be a year before we could return to free Ascent and sail the rest of the way to Dover.